All right, so let's get into it today. We're going to be talking about Uber and possibly the idea of how Uber could be maybe taking cryptocurrency, and also what the innovation will look like around Web3 and what kind of companies could be competing with Uber, because all of this will play into the blockchain. You guys are going to like this one. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. If you guys are looking at long-term holding, one of the best ways to do that is getting into crypto IRAs. There's a couple things you can do. You can get into gold and silver. You can also jump into all of the blue chips, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. But you also have the capacity to get into things like XRP, Avalanche, Axie Infinity. There's just a ton of options all inside the iTrust platform. So make sure and check it out. You do get a $100 funding reward if you use our link, so make sure and just use that. It does help the channel. All right, so let's go into a couple of things. I wanted just to highlight, to you guys, some of you that are brand new to our show and maybe don't know completely how we cover and what we cover. We really stay, on forward-leading technology. Blockchain, of course, is one of those big sectors. Of course, we talk about AI. And the other area we talk about is ride-sharing. Ride-sharing, of course, has been one of the topics we've hit here on the channel for quite some time. We've covered ride-sharing in reference to Solana and what's happening with Hivemapper. We'll talk about that today. We've looked at Dido's program, which is a Chinese ride-sharing company. There's a ton going on in this space, is the point. And the reason this is so important is because Uber, pretty much one of the gigantics within the sector, is now looking at doing something unique. And that is maybe actually taking a cryptocurrency for payment. I want to get over to a couple of clips. Let's go to our first clip right here talking about profitability.
A big day at Uber headquarters where we are this morning. Uber reporting quarterly results. The ride-sharing company achieving what is a milestone, a first ever GAAP operating profit in the company's history. Uber generated the $1.1 billion of free cash flow during the quarter. And joining us right now is the company's CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, the CEO of Uber. When you took over, by the way, I was looking, bookings were $14 billion, $33 billion right now. Free cash flow was negative $877 million. And so today is quite something for you. I don't know if you can see the stock. The stock is now up about 4, almost 5%. It at one point had clicked up over 6%. But really, you look back even towards May, and it is now a straight line up.
And what we're seeing in advertising is $650 million now of run rate revenue, growing very significantly, and we're well on our way to $1 billion plus next year.
All right, so there's a lot to break down here. I want to continue with a couple other clips. This is more of their vision for the future, Uber 3.0. Let's go to that clip.
I think you might have just completed 2.0 of sorts. I don't know if you can take a victory lap on that front just yet.
We're not ready for victory laps, but we've come a long way.
But and that was, let's be honest, I mean, that was almost a daily knife fight for you in terms of trying to get through it all. What is, to the extent you now are a platform, a profitable one, what does the 3.0 version look like?
Well, I think the 3.0 version for Uber looks like essentially are connecting every single vehicle and driver who is available to take you any place in your local city. And to some extent, what that translates to is you're an operating system for everyday life in a city, right? When you combine that with ML and AI, we essentially are there for you. Machine learning, artificial intelligence. We essentially are there for you. Any place you want to go, anything you want to get delivered to your home. As we get to know you more and more, we become more of a utility and more of, a service that you can't do without.
All right, good. I mean, that's good for Uber. And obviously there are some things that they're doing that are starting to kind of tilt the scales a bit in their favor. And obviously profitability, the idea of machine learning AI being incorporated into the platform. But really, this is still pretty much a human interface. And drivers are still the iconic badge for Uber's success. I want to go to this third clip in terms of driver profitability, so you can kind of get a framework. We'll go into that in a minute.
So for example, drivers, couriers earn over $15 billion, including tips on our platform. That was up 19%, which is up faster than our overall gross bookings growth that was up 18%. So the increase in pricing is really going, the vast majority of that is going to drivers and couriers, and we think that's fair.
All right, so some of the things I think you probably have heard this about Uber is they're a bit of a penny pincher. And they also are accused in many cases of really kind of abusing the driver network. This is a tweet here, just Uber accused of price surging customers if the phone battery is low. These are some of the shenanigans that have been played out. And Uber's not like any company. They're for profit. They're trying to do the best they can. But when you get into these kind of scenarios like this, it does start to show badly. Now, the question will be, how does Uber and will Uber integrate more consumer-facing technology like blockchain, crypto acceptance, et cetera, that will open up some interesting things? I want to jump to this next clip that really gets into kind of the forethought of their crypto plans. Listen up.
Is there any chance of Uber accepting Bitcoin in the future? Are you having conversations about this internally? Like, could it happen someday?
It definitely could. We're having conversations all the time. So we're absolutely watching it. And if you say, is Uber going to accept crypto in the future? Absolutely. At some point. This isn't the right point, but we will.
Speaking of that, last time you were here, you said Uber will absolutely accept crypto someday.
Someday.
Any more details on that?
It's demonstrated to be a real store of value, but it has not yet demonstrated its utility in terms of exchange of value, efficient exchange of value. You know, our average trip is a $15, $20 trip. So we need crypto to become more efficient. We're certainly looking at all choices, but if you ask me the same question a month from now, I think the answer is going to be the same.
So interesting. I mean, the efficiency side of thing, just to look at their Drive platform for how to cash out with their thing called FlexPay. One of the things you'll notice here is transfer completed 1 to 2 business days. So, I mean, in most cases, bank transfers and transfers today are almost next day, with the exception of a handful of entities out there. I think Uber, being one of the leading technology companies and by far the leading ride-sharing platform, could easily leap to this. Now, the question would be is, could the platform of choice scale to what Uber's demands would be? They have millions and millions of customers. Using activity on some of these blockchains would be pretty significant. And one of the things that they could benefit from is some of the new technology. Now, the question is whether or not Web3 applications will start to leap forward and above Uber, especially around fees. But before you think about that, but outside of the ride-sharing side of things, Uber also has Uber Eats. Now, this is the other aspect of their profitability. This is just how Uber Eats works currently with, if you're a restaurant, you're going to get, charged a pretty heavy commission. I'm going to zoom in on that for you guys, starting at around 15% right now, and pretty much standard across the board right now. And this is one of those things that is starting to, I would say, slightly soften, with mainly because of the fees for Uber Eats and also because of the pressure that we've seen from consumers who are now going back to dining and or doing pickup. Matter of fact, there's a lot of new data on that, of that very same situation. So Uber Eats may not necessarily be the path forward, at least as a huge profit center for Uber as a whole. I think their potential here is still ride sharing, and the potential for this to really kind of accelerate is going to be interesting to watch, because if crypto gets in the mix, it could be pretty significant. Here's just a little bit of research. Ride-sharing market size worth around $344 billion by 2030. That's a pretty significant market. And if you just think about what Web3 would look like, what crypto would look like in here, this would be one of the gigantic companies that could really start to move, especially how adoption is done, because I think ease of use is going to be a big factor here. Now, I want to kind of cover a few companies that we've talked about here on the show before. This is where we get into the Web3 side of things. If you're brand new to the show and you're trying to figure out, all right, how does this affect me? What can I invest in? What am I watching in terms of new technology? This is a good precursor to the ride-sharing side of things, because there's a handful of companies that are developing on Solana. Now, Solana we talk about all the time. It's one of the, I would say, the blue chips of crypto right now. And these are some of the companies that are integrated within and or on the platform of Solana. And there's others out there, and we'll talk about a few of those. But Teleport right here is basically a ride sharing that is as open as the internet. The idea is pretty straightforward. It's designed to be more of an open network of ride sharing and how that might be utilized in the future. So we're going to see more of this. And I think when you think about Teleport and just what they've been able to do in a short period of time, you also have to kind of look at the team. This, of course, is their CEO, remember, this guy is part and was part of the team that designed Dropbox, their point-to-point protocol. That's a pretty significant leap. I mean, when you look at the type of technology and also the engineers that are in the space, this is another one that has leaped to Web3, which is really great for Web3. It's great for innovation, and we're going to see more of that. I want to go to a clip of Teleport, their CEO, talking a little about what their vision is. Take a look.
Everyone's been talking about network effects and moats, but I think very few people have thought about, like, how do you break these network effects? I mean, eBay is a $22 billion company. Uber takes 44% of every ride. Like, eBay looks like it's stuck in the 90s.
Yeah.
Where I'm getting at with this is, like, how do you break this network effects, I think, is what we're going to see in the next 10 years. But it feels a little bit like Elon sitting down and being like, why are rockets so expensive? You get all these excuses like, well, the manufacturers of these screws, they're just expensive. And it's like, well, the metal doesn't cost that much. And so this is the question I've been asking myself with Uber. So I see it as a DePIN project, but I think more than anything, it's an attempt to break network effects.
All right, so the point that he's getting at is how to build these decentralized marketplaces within these things. Think of if Uber, which Uber has a marketplace right now, if we start to see decentralization within marketplaces, it means everything from restaurants to all sorts of brands, et cetera, that could be able to use these decentralized marketplaces. And Teleport is kind of moving in that direction. Just to get an example of some of the companies that they work with, Dropbox, Amazon, many others, a pretty decent lineup of investors that are behind this, which I think is another reason that this could be a big opportunity. Now, lining up how crypto and ride sharing come together, Teleport is just one of many that are starting to move in this direction. He mentioned Uber, the fees, all those kind of things. I think Uber is in the sun right now for a short period of time, unless they start to look at some sort of decentralized platform, marketplaces, et cetera, or at least the very, very minimum, which is accepting cryptocurrency, I think would be a big step. But I think we'll come back to this in a few years and say, wow, that was the beginning of the end of Uber or the innovation that Uber is going to bring to the market. All right, so this is DRIFE, which is the Teleport of India. And like what is being done with Teleport in utilizing things like Hivemapper, again, more Solana-based technology, they're using a platform that is based off this DePIN technology, which is the idea around decentralized physical infrastructure. We'll talk about that in a second. But the point is that this company is also tied into a company called Iotex, which essentially is, think of it as GPS location, and especially as we start to see Web3 and how mapping is going to be a critical aspect of Web3, all of these platforms and projects are going to need these kinds of integrations. And this is something that could really leverage into eventually a competitor to Uber. The question, though, I think will be is who could win? Is going to be Solana? Are we going to see some scenarios playing out within things like this, especially if you think about what DRIFE is doing in India? All of that could be an interesting aspect. I want to go to another clip here, which kind of breaks down how DRIFE is using Iotex itself for geolocation. Take a look.
Because, at the end, you need to understand it's a real ride-hailing business. It takes its own time to go from one city to another. But I guess these two cities this year, one of them will go live, which will play an important role for how faster then we go to new cities in, next 1 year. So the first thing that we're working with them is on geolocation data tracking for drivers in a more decentralized fashion, because the most important aspect of drive is location. Only when I know which location driver is, will be able to send them ride requests. So it has to do a lot with geolocation, and at this point, everything goes through a backend server. So we receive data on a backend server, then we fetch specific data points and send it to the smart contract to do fare calculation. Very basic. Now, those are the things that we are testing with them to see how the geolocation tracking can be done more on a decentralized fashion, and we can have this whole decentralized geolocation data of drivers. So that's the first thing that we are working with them. We're very excited about this.
All right, so decentralized geolocation of drivers, the potential here is pretty significant. If you look at this tweet right here, it kind of breaks down some of the DePIN projects that are out there. Hivemapper, decentralized Google Maps. Teleport, which we just showed you, a decentralized Uber, shadow storage, decentralized Dropbox, and obviously Helium is one of the early adopters, which we've talked about in the wireless frontier and also in the IoT space. If you have seen our early videos on Helium prior to them going to the 5G network and getting into the mobile space. But you've got storage in there, Arweave is in there, compute, you've got render in here, and then you see Hivemapper on here as well, and then of course the sensor equipments. So there's a lot happening in this space, and this does bode well, I think, for what the future of Web3 is in the area of ride sharing, because there's going to be a lot of new technologies that start to roll out, and this is going to, I think, change maybe the frontier of where all this is going, but maybe even the roadmap for Uber. So that will be the play as to whether or not they do go into crypto, and also do they adopt decentralization is going to be the big question. Most of the walled gardens that we've seen so far have not necessarily embraced this, but I think there might be a time when it actually does happen. All right, so I want to go to a clip that shows you a little bit more about how Teleport actually works. Look at this one.
All right, so we're literally going to book a ride. We're Circle, we're here live, getting to see how people are really utilizing our product right now. You know, it's awesome. Man, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're about to teleport as fast as USDC right now.
That's it.
All right, so I mean, this is early stages, and it's one of those things, I think, as we start to see a lot of Web3 adoption, this is one of those that could be maybe an early Uber, and that would be quite something. All right, further in, I want to show you, just to give you an example, here's Hivemapper, which is another platform out there that we've talked about before. Actually, I'll show you a clip here in a second, but 4 million unique road kilometers mapped since January 2023. That's a lot. 4 million represents 6.6% of the global road network. You can kind of see a little bit of what's happening out there. But if you're not aware of Hivemapper and you want to, this is based on a Solana project, and you want to learn more, we actually did a full interview with their CEO as well. So go back and check that one out. How it works, basically, it is, you know, it's AI mapping, and there's a lot of tool sets within it. If you kind of scan down here, some aspects that they've already started to do with AI is being able to catalog changes that are occurring real time versus what Google does, which is sends around the Google cars and, you know, takes photos of everything, grabs the surroundings. And that's something that is kind of unique, where Hivemapper could be a little bit more of an advanced platform for use of mapping. Another thing they do, which is kind of interesting, is this right here, is this map ID. Now, most of this is training the AI. Now, if you think about Tesla and Dojo, which is Tesla's supercomputer that runs a lot of the self-driving, autopilots, all that kind of stuff, most of that is cataloged and indexed by humans. They are watching footage, road footage, from Tesla, and they're cataloging and indexing what the car is picking up to basically create, you know, a neural net of what I think is still one of the most advanced you know, driving systems out there. I've driven both the BMW here recently and the Teslas. And one thing I've noticed is Tesla has really kind of ramped things up with the new Vision product, which I was a little bit skeptical of at first. So far, I've seen some of the new lane change stuff. Anyway, point I'm getting at is there's some advanced tech out there, and Hivemapper is actually making this really easy to catalog these changes of these roads, road signs, etc. So they make it kind of a gamification thing, and that to me is huge, because the more adoption they get, remember, Hivemapper pays you to basically go out and do your everyday commute, your everyday riding and or driving, and it's grabbing that data back from your phone, and then they give you basically a payment in you know, in exchange for that. So some pretty cool gamifications here. I want to go to the clip here where we talk to Hivemapper and ask them some specific questions. Listen in. Can you give us any big name company that's using your data yet?
There are some, but I can't share them.
Oh, come on. Let me ask you this. For companies, if I have a big company, I need a mapping solution, what's going to be your core selling proposition to them for somebody saying, okay, Hivemapper, we want to write you a check because we want that API or want access to your data? What's like the core thing that they're interested in today?
Freshness. So that
All
means
right,
is
so
that
accuracy, clean maps accuracy.
Google
All right,
Street View.
then you can just say it. Uber is your biggest customer. Why not go ahead and roll this out into the Uber fleet or the Lyft fleets, into the Postmate fleets that are out there doing all these deliveries, and just, just bam.
We don't know exactly what percentage of the current drivers are Uber drivers or Lyft drivers. We think it's like 30 to 40% of the people who are driving are Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, Amazon Flex drivers, all those kinds of people.
All right, so you can see, we kind of pressed him a little bit. It was a good interview, and we had fun with it, and I think he enjoyed it at the end. But the point is there's a huge opportunity here, big opportunity for crypto, blockchain, Web3, some of the platforms that are going to be developing in this space, especially Solana, which I think will be one of the leaders in this area. The other one that I start to look at and think, all right, what else could be used in this area for these high-level transactions? And you have to look at XRP. One of the things that's happening with XRP right now, TapJets is offering the use case of XRP. And one of the things that they've identified here, and this is kind of just coming from one of the blogs, but TapJets describes the delay it takes the traditional banking system to process wire transfers during the weekend and late hours on weekdays and the Friday night problem, which is, I know this is it's a first world problem, but there are people out there booking these jets and they can't get the transactions done because it's a Friday night and banks are closed. This is the cool thing about crypto. It creates no barriers and no limitations. That, I think, is going to be a big critical factor in how Web3 grows, especially in ride hailing and ride sharing, but also maybe with the Web2 crossover companies like an Uber as well. So they call it the Friday night problem because the limitations in fiat currency and the banking system, of course, most problematic when a traveler wishes to book on weekend travel. Think about that for a second. Tourism in general, already facing that. You think about travelers and having to deal with that. It's just the currency exchange issue, some of the scenarios that are just additional loopholes and hurdles that I've got to jump through just to fly to Paris quickly, do a week trip or something for travelers. Crypto would be the natural solution for this. So definitely, I think coming in the future for sure. Here was one of the amicus briefs that was filed by TapJets, and it was claiming that 43% of TapJets customers voted for XRP as a choice of currency to pay for their flights. So again, if this is a potential here for XRP to maybe open up and make a run at, say, hey, listen, maybe we could create something that obviously XRP is secure. It's very fast. If you think about just how quick XRP is secure and fast, take a look at their mainnet. Right here, you can kind of see the transactions actually happening right now. You're talking about 3.7 seconds. The amount of security that is layered into this. This is an opportunity, I think, for XRP, but it's also an opportunity, I think, for a lot of these Web3 development platforms. So kudos to Teleport, obviously Hivemapper, many of these other companies that are starting to develop in the Web3 space. This is going to get interesting, and Uber could be at the center of this, both on data or possibly acquisition. I still think maybe Tesla needs to jump into this space when you just think about the amount of cars and the collection of data that's happening out there within the Tesla fleet. So much to do. Listen, blockchain is starting to intersect all of these technologies. We talk about it here all the time. And this is just another good example of how all of this starts to intertwine each other for the future of blockchain and, of course, the future of investing in this sector. All right, if you guys are part of our Diamond Circle, make sure, if you're not part, get in now. It's one of the things that we do that is our private member group. We do an additional podcast over there. I do a bunch of additional analysis that we don't do here on the YouTube channel. And we also do a ton of research that gets dropped into that as well when we do post some of our videos over there that you don't get a chance to see here on the YouTube channel. So it's easy to do. Just click the link down below. Of course, if you guys want to catch me, it's out there on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.